For the paper that I plan to write, I have chosen the topic of climate change, and I have found out these two articles which have opposing position about the similar issue, which is climate change. And now my teacher has assigned me this assignment of writing argument analysis paper. Okay. Now, students, we are supposed to read these two papers, okay, or two editorials, or two opinion pieces. So after we have read them, then we need to write our argument analysis paper. So the first thing in the argument analysis paper will be the thesis statement. Now, after reading these two papers or these two editorials, or after reading your own editorials that you choose for yourself, you need to think of a thesis statement. What will be the thesis statement? The thesis statement will be a statement which reflects your position with reference to that particular topic. Now, of course, there are two positions with reference to climate change. Either you say it is a myth or you say it is a fact. My position with reference to these two editorials is that climate change is a fact. But if I write that as a thesis statement, that climate change is a fact, then it looks to be a little too obvious to say that, because one article is already saying it. My paper is going to be based upon these two articles, and one article is already stating almost the same thing, that climate change is a fact. So I need to write a thesis statement in such a manner that it should look a little more arguable. For example, I can say then that climate change is a fact because there are many verifiable facts, or there are many verifiable proofs to support it. Let me rephrase it. Climate change is a fact because, or I can say climate change is a reality because there are many verifiable facts to prove it. Now, if you listen to this statement that I have just spoken out, naturally your response would be, what are the verifiable facts? I would then say that I can provide you those facts, and then those facts will become my arguments. I will say the first argument is this, second one is this, third one is this, fourth one is this, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Okay. So now, this is just about the thesis statement. Now let's come to the argument part. I'm asking you to produce the argument to support your thesis statement in such a manner that your argument must be based upon these two editorials that you are reading. Let me demonstrate to you how will I do that, or how you should do that. Now, if I scroll down on this article, the Guardian article, you are aware of that, you have read it. Take this argument over here, this one, that this writer is giving. Okay. Anybody would like to read it loud for us, this paragraph? We have read it, I know, but just for today's demonstration. Anybody would like to read it?
So can I read it?
Please proceed.
Okay. Take changes in sea level. They keep banging on about how the warming of the atmosphere causes rising in sea levels. But if that was happening, we'd have seen it by now. It's been countless decades since they first started predicting this, but here we still are. But they persist in trying to convince us that it's a real threat, citing places that we're supposedly lost to the waves, and we're supposed to believe that places like Atlantis, Miami, or Skegness actually existed. You believe that rubbish, and you probably believe we landed on Ganymede, and you're an idiot. So there's no hope for you.
Okay. Now, Sophia, if you could also read another part. So students, now this is the another article. Okay, it is called Climate Change. How do we know? The article is published by NASA. If you can look on the left top of yours, left top of this particular page. And now I'm scrolling down on this particular article, and I reach this point over here, which says sea level rise. Okay. What Sophia has just read over here in the Guardian article, that is an argument in favor, that is an argument against the climate change. The writer is saying basically that climate change is a myth. It is not real. Why? Because sea levels are not actually rising. But look at the evidence that the writer is providing. Students, can you notice the kind of evidence that this writer is providing in the Guardian article? Do you think that evidence is sufficient? Yes or no? Yes. Any responses? Do you think that evidence is sufficient? Yes or no response?
Yes, sir.
Okay, on the green highlighted part, do you think this evidence seems to be sufficient to support his point that sea levels are not rising?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so why not? Why the evidence is not sufficient?
Sir, I think it's sufficient.
Okay, so why do you think so?
So like from the decades, it's not rising up or changing. I think so. That's why like this phrase can be a fact that countless decades have been passed and no rising up of the sea levels are there.
Okay, so
So
listen, Junaid. Okay, listen, Junaid. You are reading from this paragraph where the writer is saying that uh, the sea levels are not rising for
yes, sir.
this long time. Okay,
Yes,
but does
yes,
the
sir.
writer give us an evidence? You know what evidence is. You, for example, you are a lawyer and you are standing in front of the judge, and you are trying to prove somebody free of guilt. Okay, and the judge says, give me an evidence, and you say that this person has not committed a crime in last 10 years. That is
Yes,
not an
sir.
evidence. Is that evidence?
No, sir.
You need to
Sir,
show
but
something substantial.
he's like talking he's talking around like you can say that sir it's the whole sir सर ये जो है ना लाइक सर सारी जो है ना ये एक सर्कल की तरह है लाइक जो है जो क्लाइमेट चेंज है ना ये वाला सर इसमें सर आपको वो मिलता है कि जो ये पूरा सर एक
Yeah, yeah. You are
सर
you're
ये
trying to say that you can take
सर
any position and you can provide argument for any position.
no sir I'm just saying like it's been the countless decades it can be a fact and
It
it
can
can be
be,
a
but listen, yes, it can be a fact. That I agree with you. But does the writer provide any evidence in this paragraph? You know,
Sir,
you
can I
might,
say something?
Junaid, you might have any evidence somewhere lying in any of the books or maybe in your brain or wherever. But does the
Yes.
writer give any evidence in this paragraph, in these lines? Does, for example, he quote any research carried out by
No.
any scientist? Is the writer
No.
himself a scientist who has observed it with his eyes? Does he refer to any experiment which has been carried out by anybody? That will
No.
be evidence. Sufia, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. I have a different view. I think that NASA's statement is a little insufficient because, say, 8 inches is
Okay, no,
not very
we haven't reached there yet. We are on the Guardian
okay.
article. I want your opinion about the Guardian article first.
Yes, sir. The writer has not given any evidence,
Okay,
a
the
very
writer
solid
has,
evidence
yeah,
regarding his statement.
sure. Okay, the writer has not given any evidence, Junaid. What the writer is saying, that seems to be
Yes,
making
sir.
sense. I agree with you. I mean, for
Yes.
decades, he's saying that for decades. But how can he say that for decades it has not happened? Just because the article is published in the Guardian does not mean that whatever the writer is saying is true. The writer needs to provide some evidence for that. Okay, now just to explain it further, let's look at the example in another article which is on the other side. Okay, which is published by NASA, subsidiary of NASA. Let's read it first, then I'll ask your opinion about it. Okay, so Sufia, please read this part.
Okay, sir. Global sea level rose about 8 inches, 20 centimeters in the last century. The rate in the last 2 decades, however, is nearly double that of the last century and accelerating slightly every year.
Okay, now in this case, the writer has provided some calculations to us instead of casually saying that for decades sea has been rising. He has given us some calculation, but look at this small 10 which is written over here. Anybody who knows what does that 10 mean? What does that 10 mean? That 10 is reference to another source from where this writer took this fact which the writer has stated over here. We need to scroll down the page to see references. Under references, we can go to number 10. This is number 10. All right. Now, here is an article written by these 4 people. This is the title of the article. This is where it is published in 2018. And this is the link where this article is available. Let me see if I can share this with you. Students, when I click that number, I was able to open this article. I will in fact ask you if you are able to see it. Let me first see it myself. Okay, can you see this PNAS, Proceedings of the National Academy? Please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Now students, that number 10 led me to this page. This is the page of National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. They held a conference, and this is from the proceedings of that particular conference. Now, what is this piece called? This is a research article. That is the first thing. The second thing is, this research article is about climate change driven accelerated sea level rise detected in the altimeter area. This has been written by these 4 people. I don't know what is the caliber of scientists, but they are scientists. And this is a detailed article about that. You might notice that they have given their observation via graphs. They have given their observation via graphs once again, and they have given all the details in terms of the calculations that they undertook. They have given the method of conducting their research, variation, and then they have further provided the whole list of the references on the basis of which they have reached that particular conclusion. Okay. Now, by the virtue of the fact that what we read about rising of sea level in this second article, that idea has been taken from a scientific journal and from a published research article, that makes this argument more verifiable, more evidence-based, and more accurate as compared to the argument given in the Guardian article. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Now, of course, Junaid or you, Sophia, or anybody else, you might have a disagreement with either of these authors. That is a separate debate, okay? But at the face of it, when we are comparing these two arguments, we can argue which argument is stronger and which argument is weaker. Okay, now what you are going to do in your argument analysis paper. In your argument analysis paper, after you have written your thesis statement could be that climate change is a reality because many scientific evidences or verifiable evidences are available to support this point. If that is your thesis statement, then you can continue to write your arguments. Your first argument can be that climate change is a reality because the sea levels are rising. You might remember I told you that after the topic sentence, this is the topic sentence for your first argument paragraph. After the topic sentence, then you will write with reference to the arguments that you have read in these two editorials. So you can say the article written by Mr. So-and-so published in this particular magazine, The Guardian, according to him, sea levels are not rising because had the sea levels been rising, then the world must have been drowned. And then you can continue to say, but this seems to be a very weak argument because the writer has not provided any scientific data to support his argument. On the other hand, Mr. So-and-so published an article on the website of NASA, and that article says that sea level are rising 8 inches or 10 inches, whatever, at the rate of 8 inches per year or whatever that figure is. And the writer has supported this argument with reference to a published research article. Therefore, we can say that sea levels are rising. This is your first argument. It is complete. Now, you don't need to say actually which argument is stronger. When you explain both arguments in such a manner, your reader, which is me, I will understand which argument you are favoring. Okay. Now, notice that I'm using the words from the Tolman method tool. I'm using the words from there in order to analyze these arguments. For the first argument, when I say that the argument does not provide any reason or does not provide any verifiable evidence, reason and verifiable evidence, both of these words come from the Tolman method. And when I say that for the argument in the second article, when I say that the writer has provided accurate evidence or accurate evidence, then again, I'm using the words from the Tolman method. Okay, but there is a comparison between these two arguments from these two articles. And based upon that comparison, I'm also giving my own argument. So this is my argument number one. In my second argument, just like this argument, then students, I can find more arguments of the similar kind. Now, if we,
Is it,
for example, scroll down in this Guardian article,
sir?
any question, please proceed.
Yes, sir. So I just want to ask that if the both articles are full of facts and they are just supporting the those their points with the facts, and so how can we just support a specific article? How
Okay,
can we just do that? We
okay,
have to be neutral in this way. Like if both are just supporting their points with the facts and with the
okay.
research.
I got your question. So basically, that is why I asked you all to have your own thesis statement. Students, you must have your own position about all these themes that you are interested in. Okay. Uh, for example, uh, uh, some people say that the spread of pandemic corona COVID-19. Some people even go to the extent of saying it is a myth. Okay. Uh, in that case, you as an individual must have your own opinion about this theme. Okay. Keep that opinion in mind. Find two articles, one saying that it is that COVID-19 is not a myth, and the other saying that COVID-19 is a myth. Read both of those articles. Now keep your own thesis statement in mind. That thesis statement does not come from outside, it comes from what you read. So you will read those articles and you will feel that whatever feeling you already had about COVID-19, uh, that feeling seems to be true, that COVID-19 is a reality. And then you will realize that you already seem to be knowing about it because you were getting a lot of authentic information about that from various resources. Maybe you had subscribed to WHO website, or you had liked their page on Facebook and they were sending the information, and you kept reading those articles which were written and published by authentic scientific bodies in the world. That is why you had developed that opinion and that belief that COVID-19 was a reality. You already knew it, but that your knowledge was not random. It was based upon scientific data. But now I'm asking you to write a paper about it, about COVID-19. Okay. So take those two articles. Now coming to the point where you say that both articles seems to be equally solid. Well, that is your challenge. That is a challenge for all of you. You know, in real life, what we call neutrality, I don't know how it works, but you need to take a side. Do you stand on the side of the scientific data, or do you stand on the side of just what we call rhetoric? By rhetoric, we mean people just keep saying one thing over and over again without having any scientific support for what you say. If you move around in your own society, you will come across many people who don't believe in COVID-19. Why is that? They take a position. Why is that? All right. So when you take those two articles, they appear to be both of them equally logical or maybe science based or whatever, but that is your challenge. You have to support your position that you have, but of course with solid reasons based upon those two articles. All right. So you have to take a side. I don't know how will you manage that, but as I anticipated, it shouldn't be very hard to overcome this challenge. You will clearly see that where one article seems to be lacking. People sometimes keep repeating their cultural beliefs as scientific truths. Okay. Or people keep repeating their personal observations as scientific truths. But that is not true. Your personal observation is your personal observation. It is not scientific truth. So in the Guardian article, that writer is kind of giving his personal opinion that for decades nothing has happened. But that is a personal opinion. He is not quoting any research published by any institution. Okay, so whatever stands on unscientific side, whatever stands on on the side of no logic, no rationalization, no justification, no argument, you will see it clearly reflected in that article. Okay, so just do it. I'm sure you will come up with a very clear difference between both of the articles that you come to read. Okay, but thanks. I think this is a good question. Other people should have this question in mind. Okay, students, I want to give you one more example from both articles for my second argument. Okay, now my arguments are coming from these two editorials. Please note it. I'm writing my argument analysis paper. My thesis statement comes from these two editorials. I read them. I made up my mind that this is what my thesis statement is going to be. And then, based upon these two editorials, I decided that I could use these three arguments for the sake of my analysis and for the sake of writing my own argument. So my second argument, I'm deciding to be about the extreme weather conditions. Now, in the Guardian article, again, if you look at the highlighted part, then there is this extreme weather nonsense. Student, you might notice that use of the word nonsense itself implies that the writer is just being maybe angry or something, but there is no science in it. This is not how scientists speak. So if something is nonsense, that does not mean it is not scientific. It continues, I have not noticed any changes in the weather outside of the norm. So what? If you have not noticed, that doesn't mean you have scientific backing to support your point. Okay, so he's not providing any verifiable evidence, any accurate data, any scientific data for his argument. And then it continues, clueless climate change believers keep telling me it is a global change, so that doesn't mean anything. But I live on the globe, so I would notice any changes, wouldn't I? Though, but there have not been any changes, obviously. Well, how is it obvious? You haven't given any scientific evidence to prove it, to prove your argument. If I move to the other side of the screen, students, please look at extreme events. So the writer over here says the number of record high temperature events in the United States has been increasing, while the number of record low temperature events has been decreasing since 1950. So look at the very tone of this argument. Very scientific and rational way to describe it. The US has also witnessed increasing number of intense rainfall events. I will say two things. The first one, if you click this more, I'm not going to do it. There are more details about this argument. Okay, I'm just going to draw your attention to this word, this 12 written over here. If you scroll down and go to the 12 point in reference, you will see that a research article has been mentioned over here from where this writer has taken this point about extreme events. So if you click open this on number 12, if you click this hyperlink TOI, you can double check that article. So in the Tolman method, you might remember I said, and this is what the handout also said, that for a good argument, the evidence provided should be verifiable. So we can verify this evidence by clicking this link and by opening that article, research article from where this information has been taken. Now, how will I write it in my paper? So my second argument will be that climate change is a fact because climate change is creating extreme weather on the globe. I will continue to write. Mr. So-and-so in the article published in the Guardian says that extreme weather is a nonsense. And he says that he never observed any major changes in the weather. But that writer does not provide any scientific evidence to support his position. On the other hand, Mr. So-and-so wrote and published an article on NASA website. And that article says that extreme weather has taken place in the US in the last 50 years. And then this writer quotes or refers to a research article published at this and this and this place. Now, students, it is your, in fact, job to work on this part. If you want to double check or verify any of the article from where a writer has quoted, please do that for yourself with reference to your own articles that you are taking. If a writer says that he has taken this information from a book written by Mr. So-and-so, try to double check that. Okay. Usually you will find, you will be able to verify that. Okay. Because if something has been published, it's almost impossible that somebody should give a wrong piece of information. Okay. So if you can verify, do verify. Okay. Anyways, for this article, we can verify. All right. So you can say that Mr. So-and-so published article on NASA says that extreme weather has taken place, and then this writer quotes or refers to another research article which has been published at this and this place. And that makes me think, you as a writer can write, that makes me think that extreme weather are taking place because of climate change. It's your second argument. Similarly, you will write your third argument based upon same two editorials that you have chosen. Okay. And then finally, you will write your conclusion. In the conclusion, you will restate your thesis statement. You will say that the above arguments prove that climate change is a reality. And then you can further add, climate change is a reality because it is making the sea levels rise, and it is creating extreme weathers, and whatever the third argument is, you can add that too. And that is your conclusion part. Now, by reading your write-up argument analysis paper, if you write it the way I have just explained to you, in fact, I will be reading your analysis of these two editorials, but at the same time, I will be reading that analysis from your perspective, and that is what I want. Okay, so I hope you understand that I don't want you to tell that this is good and this is bad. No, you have to, create your own thesis statement out of those two editorials. Take one side out of these two. Okay, and then produce arguments. Let me say reproduce arguments, because in fact you are using the same arguments which are given in the editorials, but in such a manner that you are analyzing those arguments as well. Okay, you don't have to use the whole article and all the arguments from both articles. I just want 500 to 600 words. So you can pick and choose. Just take 3 to 4 articles. Just take 3 to 4 arguments from those two articles, and just use those 3 to 4 arguments for the sake of your paper. All right. Any questions, students? We have 3 to 4 minutes if you have any questions.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, good. Any questions, students?
Sir, will we send you the articles as well?
Okay, now
along with our assignment?
Yeah, before that, please also note in the next class, I was hoping that we could do it today, but in the next class, share with me the at least the topic on which you want to write your paper. I expect from you that you should have done much more by the next class. You should have your primary draft, basic draft ready, but I want you to share with me the topic of your argument analysis paper, the topic on which you want to find two editorials. Okay, but make sure you have found the editorials by then. Okay, that is one thing. The other thing is that when you submit to me the assignment, you will submit to me your analysis in 500 to 600 words plus both of the editorials. Okay, if they are online, you can just give me the links, they are sufficient.